Good evening and welcome to this edition of The Checkpoint. My name is Nicholas Wasaja. Thank you very much for keeping it Urban TV. We hope out there you're sanitizing. We hope you're wearing your mask. We hope you're social distancing because COVID-19 is still on the rampage. Now, tax predates humanity, and more often than not, it courts controversy because of the pinch that it comes with. On the set tonight, we have the Executive Director, Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute, SEATINI Uganda. Madam Jane Nalunga is the Executive Director at SEATINI. Jane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and good evening, viewers.
Jen, we are going to start off by me and you know that the budget for the next financial year that Parliament passed is about 44 trillion. And of this, in the next financial year, government projects that our domestic revenue collection is going to be at about 22 trillion, about there. But interestingly, more than a half of this money is going to go to debt servicing and of course consumptive expenditure. So there is very little that remains for development and service delivery. When you look at the proposed budget vis-a-vis what government projects that it will collect to support this budget, what do you exactly get and what does this exactly mean?
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Wasaja, for having me here. The issue of financing development is very critical. Every government has to have an income to be able to provide services, to be able to provide infrastructure. So there is that challenge, that balancing, you know, and that's why we talk about the revenue cycle, you know, how government mobilizes resources, how it allocates, and how it utilizes. It's a cycle. It goes back into mobilization and then back again into allocation and utilization. So if you do it wrong, the whole cycle breaks down, and then you go into getting debt or loans because you can't mobilize properly. Today, what you have pointed out is true. When you look at our budget, the 44 trillion, and you look at where that money is going to go, it's about debt servicing. And when you look at where also the money is going, apart from the debt servicing, security, infrastructure, you know, then down, that's where you find trade, you find agriculture, you know. Then you wonder, because this is the real economy, where is government going to generate resources to be able then to pay back the debts and also to provide for services and infrastructure. So we are almost in a cycle, you know. We are in a cycle, and we need some real big debate, national debates about the economy. You know, when people talk about a national debate, that people think about
politics
and
governance.
And governance, you know. But today we need a national debate around our economy, you know, because the economy cuts across, whether you are yellow, whether you are red, whether you are purple, you know, poverty doesn't know color.
But if you say we need a national debate on the economy, how our economy operates in Uganda, I get the feeling that probably when government is proposing tax measures and how it will raise domestic revenue, there is very limited input from other stakeholders, say for Parliament. Is that really so?
Yeah, that's true. In fact, when we talk about having national debates around the economy, that's where we need to, we can be able to divide it up. And rightly what you are saying, for example, the tax debates. Tax debates are given very little time. I was consulting my people in the office, And they were telling me that they gave national consultation 2 days for people to go to Parliament and be able to give their views. 2 days. You know, this time they told me it was put in the newspapers. Other times it isn't put in the newspapers. And people don't know, you know. And also you find, for me what I think also is that the private sector should be proactive. You know, the moment they hear that the tax bills are out, they should be able to engage. In fact, when you look at the amount of time and energy given to the budget, the budget debate, and the time given to tax debate, there is a very big gap. So you find people, citizens, they comment after the fact, you know, when they say, oh, there is a tax on fuel, that's too much. But where were you, you know, to be able to give your proposal? And I think also this goes to the media houses. You need to provide more time, you know. Let government provide more time for the debates, for citizens' inputs, you know, because in a way to also promote ownership. Because if people know, if people have debated, and if people have agreed, you know, that, okay, you know, you don't agree to a tax, but you appreciate that tax, and where that tax is coming from, and why government is imposing that tax, you know, then there will be ownership.
Maybe one would argue that, for example, in the space of the last 3-4 years, we've, for example, had government rescind on what I would call the punitive over the top tax that was imposed on internet bundles. Recently, government had proposed license fees on all vehicles in Uganda, annual license fees of motor vehicles and motorbikes, and government was able to rescind on this as well. So I thought this was as a result of heated public debate on these issues. So what exactly, when you talk about debate on tax and national issues that affect the national economy, what exactly do you mean as civil society?
You know, as SEATINI, we are in a consortium. We have the Uganda Tax Justice Alliance, and we do mobilize some citizens, some MSMEs to participate. And my comment is out of our experience in that, you know, that level of engagement is still very low. It's true government has receded on some taxes, OTT, but it removed the OTT, but now it has put back 12% excise on data, which is also...
And we shall get to that.
We shall get to that, okay. But when you look at the level of engagement on tax measures, it's still very, very low. And sometimes it's a Kampala affair, you know. Up country, people don't know. They don't know. And government also needs that input, by the way, from citizens, because government imposes taxes to boost the economy on behalf of the private sector, on behalf of the people, you know. So they need to hear what are the people saying. What are the other alternative measures? And maybe again here, I think government should also put more money, you know, in Ministry of Finance. It's they're the people who control the money in their budget, but to put more money in research and consultation. They should go up country, consult the MSMEs, the Chamber of Commerce, Private Sector Foundation, all those branches out to there. They should do a lot of research, a lot of consultation.
You've given research as one of the measures through which government can come up with policies that are more appreciated in public. But now going back to the earlier discussion we had on having people engaged, what do you propose that should be done by government to have a more inclusive debate on tax, other than just saying government should come to us? How? Because sometimes space is limited when it comes, when you look at the budget cycle. Definitely you're not going to be able to have that much time for engagement. So as civil society, how do you propose, and actually how do you come in to ensure that you bring the debate to the people?
Okay. In fact, as civil society, what we are proposing was that this annual tax cycle is also a bit limiting. Let us make the cycle broader, 3 years, and then we have debates, and government can be able to consult, you, the media, can be able to put these issues in the media, up-country media can be able to discuss it. So we make it broader, not this 1 year. That the moment the cycle ends, then it begins again, then 2 days in parliament. It's like we are being stampeded into making policy, like the world is ending tomorrow. It isn't. Uganda is here to stay. So we need to give time to our proposals. In fact, when you look at the government came up with a domestic resource mobilization strategy, that issue is there to give more time so that the cycle is a bit longer, so that government can be able to consult, to do research. Because when you look at some of these taxes, which have also been withdrawn, there was some lack of concrete research to find out what will be the impact, how will that tax be collected, So we need that time, all of us, as citizens.
One of the issues that has come up in this, in the preparation for the budget for this financial year has been a spotlight has been cast on some of the tax measures that have been put in place. But I'll tell you a story. I saw the Honorable Bahati at pains when, for every other tax measure that was being proposed, there was Honorable Nandala Mafadi, the usual suspects, Honorable Nsereko, coming up and opposing them. And at one point, he had to stand and ask. So we have a country and its parliament that is opposed to all the other tax measures that we bring in place. We have a country and a parliament that is also opposed, because earlier they had proposed, they had also opposed some of the debt requests that had been put forward. So he was asking, you don't want us to borrow, you don't want us to increase tax on the people, but you want effective service delivery. How are we going to do this? So I'm bringing it to you now. How can government raise revenue without being punitive on the taxpayer, and without as well borrowing under the circumstance, because there are very many demands to run the country?
Yeah, a tax or taxation is a tool to be able to achieve specific objectives. So before you tax, you need to agree as a country, where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? In this year's tax, government told us the strategic priorities was industrialization, to promote investments, to boost import substitution, so that we don't import more, and also to increase exports, to be able to increase social welfare, So when you are critiquing a tax proposal, you need to be able to say, this is what we agreed on as our objective. Does this tax contradict that or not? Because you need to have a yardstick why you are opposing a tax. So that should be the beginning place. look at a tax. Does it increase or decrease social welfare? Because that's what you said. That's your priority, you know. So even in Parliament, maybe because Parliament sometimes don't have time also to be explained to why government is proposing or the ministry is proposing a certain tax. And also, we need to remember that sometimes we need to break an egg to make an omelette. And tax has never been popular. But what we need to strive for is a tax which is also fair and equitable. Let each person pay their fair share, all of us. And that's why when you look at the strategic priorities, government is talking about decreasing exemptions, you know? But then you find they have increased qualifying sectors, you know, for exemptions. So there are also some contradictions, you know, and this is why I'm saying that if there is enough time for debate, then those issues also can be able to be debated and to come out. And Parliament could also be able to understand where a certain tax proposal is coming from, you know, and also convince the people. They are citizens, you know, and that's why we are saying there has to be enough time, because for each proposal there is a reason behind it, you know. There is an objective.
So government should be given time to explain the objective and the reasoning behind this tax measure.
Exactly. Each tax measure. Why? Why are you saying you want to tax? For example, they had put a proposal to tax maize bran, to put there an export levy. It didn't pass through Parliament, you know. But the reasoning behind a tax, an export levy, you know, when you put an export tax, you are taxing the exports. An export levy is very important to promote industrialization, because you don't want to export raw materials when your industries don't have raw materials. For example, I was reading somewhere, UDC, some of their industries are working at 60% capacity because they have no raw materials. So you put an export levy so that you discourage the export of raw materials, so that your industries have raw materials, you are industrializing, you are creating jobs, and you're also increasing production. So for somebody to say, oh, government has increased taxes, they're even taxing, you know, maize. For example, maize, because for us our proposal as SEATINI was that don't tax the maize bran, tax the maize grain, because the maize bran is within the grain. And our industries, our machines here want to process. You process the maize, you get the flour, you get the bran.
Talking about that particular proposal, isn't your proposal detrimental to the lay farmer? Because when, for example, when you're talking about the maize brand, by the time someone goes to purchase, for example, maize brand, or someone produces maize brand, they have a bit of capacity. But my mother in Lugazi, who grows maize, so when you talk about taxing the maize grain, that means you're directly imposing tax on her. Yet she might not have, with the capacity, half an acre, she might not have the capacity to, unless I got you wrong. You could explain.
No, what I'm saying, we are not taxing at the point of production here. We are taxing at the point of export, you know, that because you want to discourage the export of the raw material, you know.
Do we still have people in Uganda that export raw maize? Well, they could be neighboring
across the borders. In fact, Mr. Wasaja, what you don't know, across the border, sometimes they even buy maize within the garden. Cars go directly, lorries, across the border into villages, and they take out to the maize. Some time back there were even stories where maize, they even take the cobs. They just do and take the cobs, you know. So that's what we are saying. But it goes back, Nicholas, what you are saying about your mother and my mother who is growing maize. Again, this is a digression, but it's the same issue. The issue of a minimum price. And we have been calling, you know, we have been advocating for this, calling on government to have a minimum price. You know, today maize goes up 1,000, tomorrow it's 100, 200, 500. You know, most people talk about supply and demand, you know, market forces, laissez-faire, laissez-faire. And, you know, people don't want government control, you know, but regulation is critical. Because if there is no regulation, then we are in a jungle law, you know, survival of the fittest. And that's why when you look at our mode of production, the farmer below is the one who is suffering because they have no control over the prices, you know. So when we talk about minimum, we are not talking about maximum. But let somebody sit, Nicholas, you are seated here. You can be able to say, maize, the minimum is 600 per kilo, and you do a calculation.
Isn't that outrageous? Like, where does it work? Because the reality is we are in a capital world. We are in a capital economy, and it's a free market. So how are you going to be able to control prices?
Who determines whether we are in a free market, whether we are what? It's policies. It's you and me. It's members of parliament who put in place policies. And you know, for you people, you are still young. You know, that what you are talking about to the free market, privatization, liberalization, those are what they call the structure adjustment programs, which started in late 1980s, 90s. You know, and when you look at world over, there is a question mark whether we can be able to talk about today market forces. Even those people who told us to do that are questioning, you know, that we need some level of government control. Let government come back. You go to all these countries, European Union, America, there is no way you can say up and down. No, government regulates. Government regulates, you know. But for us, you know, problems in Africa where we consume policies from outside, where they tell us do that and we do. You know, we oscillate, you know. They tell us to jump, we ask how high, you know.
We don't ask
why. Why are we jumping?
But do we have the capacity to ask why? I mean, these are our benefactors.
Who? Who is your benefactor?
The people that make the global policies.
But policies are negotiated. You know, look at other countries in Africa, even in Kenya here. They still control. They still have food reserves. You know, look at Zambia, Malawi. You know, so we need to rethink. We need to rethink our policies. We need to look at what should be the role of the state, what should be the role of the private sector. Today, Nicholas, today you can't talk about private sector-led, private sector-led growth. When the private sector also needs to be, it needs to be, you babysit, you know. It's still weak. Look at our private sector. Almost 90% are MSMEs. And the mortality rate of MSMEs, the private sector in Uganda here, is high, very, very high. And you want that sector to lead your development. So we need again to rethink what should be the role of the state, what should be the role of the private sector. Because we need this economy to grow, and it can't grow when they are, you know, it's the Njawulo makers who are leading this sector.
It's interesting. I know a shop in town that I've observed over 4 years, but every other year it has a new face and a new set of dealership. So it begs a lot of question. But you said you talked about government regulation. But I may want to ask, why, in your view, do you think the state is very reluctant to regulate economies of scale?
You know, it depends sometimes on the technocrats, on the belief, because, you know, a policy also indicates what you believe in. For example, your mindset. For example, if you believe that your children are equal, whether boys and girls, your policy will be every child goes to school. It's the mindset. Today, we haven't put a lot of debate to change the mindset. In fact, when I hear what you are saying, and I hear it a lot among young people, you know, that, oh, we are in a free market. And, you know, it's like, that's where we are. It can't change. So we need to change that mindset. We need to learn what's going on out there. What are other countries doing? How can we change, you know? But we haven't done that. We haven't. Even our universities, our institutions of higher learning, that's what we are regurgitating. Free market economy, you know, without looking at what are those policies which can work for us. And that's where we should start from. Not saying free market economy, but what policy can work. Then we put an end to it.
What works best for
us.
For us.
Because, you know, all those market-free policies are one size fit all. It can't be. Our economy is unique. Our history is unique. Our challenges are unique. And we need unique policies. So we go back and sit on that table and say, this is what we want. And then we go and negotiate it with other people out there. But the moment you say, free market, then we are not going to get out of these challenges.
I want to move on, but I'm bothered by the question of, you talked of, is it possible for everyone to have a fair share of their tax burden? And in one of the last interactions I had with you, it was in a post-budget dialogue at Africana. It was organized by civil society organizations. And one of the things that came up was that, for me, it was intriguing, that there are reports that our tax-based register has 1.5 million Ugandans of the 44 million Ugandans. Is it possible? If going by this figure that I picked from your conference, is it possible to increase Uganda's tax base? Because when you're talking about 1.5 million, you're effectively saying 1.5 million Ugandans are sustaining the other 43 million Ugandans, which is very unfair. So is it, in your analysis, is it possible to widen the tax base so that you have more people paying tax? So which lessens the burden on the 1.5.
That's true. It is possible to broaden the tax base. But again, these are all the debates we have been having here. It's a matter of reorganizing the economy. Because most of the people are in the informal, the shadow economy, you know, the cash economy, you know, money changing hands, you know, money in the sack somewhere. When you look at agriculture, they say almost 70% of the people in agriculture. Agriculture is the mainstay of our economy. But how much is government getting out of the agriculture sector? You know, that means government has to organize, you know, the agriculture sector so that they can be able to tax it. You know, so you can't harvest. You can't reap where you haven't sown anything. Government should put money in agriculture, in trade, organize it, organize production so that they can be able to to tax it.
Okay, Jane, we let's go for a very short break, and when we return, we shall speak at the specific tax measures that have been proposed for the next financial year. Let's break.